Oh, here, take, use this.
I'll get mine. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome our guests in the gallery. And the next order of business would be approval of the minutes of September the 17th, 2024. What is your wish? Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Tingley. All those in favor? Contrary of mind? Motion's carried. The next order of business will be the Department of Justice Training. Kurt? He's not here. Okay. And you, I take it you would be Kurt's stand-in?
No, so I have it in a different role. Oh, sorry.
I'll get it just here.
Apologies for that. No, so I am with the Department of Justice. I'm the RCMP liaison. I'm here to add to the presentation that Kurt would normally be delivering. However, I was just speaking with Charcy, the director over in Public Safety and Security. She was actually supposed to attend, is sick. So they are asking that perhaps this presentation be rescheduled. However, in the interim, if you would like, I could provide my piece to it about RCMP and accountability. And perhaps this can be delivered at another time.
Well, I would suggest whatever you bring to the table,
Okay.
we'd be interested in hearing.
Sure. And she does send her sincere apologies just due to changes in the calendar. And then with her being sick, I just texted her and found out she wouldn't be attending.
Well,
So
it's understandable, so I would assume that you would be in touch with staff to reschedule this.
absolutely. Absolutely. That being said, was the presentation shared with the board ahead of time? It wasn't. Okay. My apologies. Is that something that I can provide now? Or can I hook up, just because I do have my piece of the presentation?
I'll revert to Shirley on that. She's the lady to look after.
Okay, if I go over here.
You get any regrets?
I'll just not connect to the internet here. Chair, okay. Chair, just to confirm, how would I go about displaying this for everyone to view?
No,
Okay.
just that's your Shirley's.
Okay,
There you go.
all right, so. Okay. Just bear with me one moment. Okay, Chair and rest of the board members, staff, thank you for allowing me this time. I do understand it's a bit unorthodox that we're just presenting this piece and not the full board training. So just a bit of context. My role is that of RCMP liaison to Nova Scotia Department of Justice. I'm an RC employee that is seconded to Justice, and I help support the relationships with the communities that the RCMP polices. I help support the contract through which RCMP policing services are delivered, and support that relationship between the Department of Justice as administrator of the Provincial Police Service Agreement and the RCMP through senior management. So that being said, that's why I'm not really in a position to speak to the Police Act and the Police Advisory Board roles and responsibilities, which is the brunt of this presentation. I add a bit more of a piece as to how the RCMP kind of interacts with boards and the accountability mechanisms that exist within the organization. So the organizational structure of the RCMP, some of you may be aware of it, it's referred to as H Division. It's overseen by a commanding officer currently, that's Assistant Commissioner Dennis Daly. It also has a officer in charge of criminal operations that oversees the day-to-day operations of the division. And then it is split into three areas. The province is split up into three areas for operational management. You have Southwest Nova, which starts essentially at Hants County and the rest of the province westward, or I should say West Hants. And then Northeast Nova, which would be East Hants up through Cumberland County and then through Cape Breton, including Guysborough County. And then Halifax District is its own, I should say, it's recently changed name. It's Halifax Regional Detachment within Halifax District. And then, of course, as you know, you have your local detachment or district commanders. So I'm sure actually I saw his name on the agenda there earlier, Staff Mike Balmaceda. So for awareness, there's roughly about 40 municipalities policed by the RCMP, including through their own direct contracts. Your local detachment commander is your primary point of concern for any operational questions or issues. However, as the Department of Justice administers that policing contract, as I mentioned, both staff there and myself were available for any questions or concerns related to contract costs, service delivery. The division itself has over 1,500 employees, with about 1,000 of those being RCMP police officers, and they provide a variety of policing functions across the province. The operations of the RCMP in Nova Scotia are governed by both the RCMP Act, the contractual agreement between the federal government and provincial governments in the form of those policing agreements, and then, of course, the Police Act. Those provincial police service agreements through which East Hants is policed were last renegotiated in 2012 and are extended for 20 years. H Division also polices approximately 95% of the geographic area of Nova Scotia and over 60% of the population. Right. So some of the RCMP accountability mechanisms, and this is probably, it would make more sense in the context of the function of Police Advisory Board, which is part of the other piece of the presentation. But within the RCMP itself, there's a number of ways that the RCMP is accountable to stakeholders, community, the municipalities it polices, the province. Some of those include regular reporting through police advisory boards. They also publish a year in review, which is available on the RCMP website. That's a public document. There are code of conduct from the RCMP Act and disciplinary measures, of course, for individual employees. Body-worn cameras is another initiative. You may or may not be aware that those are being rolled out now across the province and across the country, actually. That will provide a new avenue of accountability for members. Managerial reviews are kind of internal audits, as well as annual performance plans. So the RCMP does have set goals at a local, divisional, and national level. through which they report their performance. External sources of accountability include boards such as yourself that provide police governance. Nova Scotia Department of Justice recently revamped its audit function with respect to policing standards, so that will provide another enhanced level of accountability. The Contract Management Committee, the other piece of the presentation goes into detail on that. Essentially, it's a body of provinces and territories that are policed through the RCMP, some other stakeholders, and Public Safety Canada that work to broadly address issues that come up in policing contracts, so your PPSAs and your MPSAs. Their mandate includes cost containment, addressing just issues that come up in terms of the administration of those contracts. In Nova Scotia, there is a Serious Incident Response Team, also known as CERT, that has a mandate to review any police-involved serious injuries or fatalities, as well as any wrongdoing against police officers. So another level of accountability there. Nationally, the RCMP is overseen by a management advisory board that provides more, I would say, business guidance, if you would, to senior management there and leaders within the organization. And then as well, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the RCMP. So should a member of the public have a concern, a complaint, they would likely be directed to their local contacts, such as a detachment commander. However, at any point, should they be unsatisfied with the resolution of that complaint, or they choose to immediately go to the CRCC, they certainly have the right to do so. And that information is well available on the RCMP website. A quick Google search would find you that information. So I'll speak a little bit here about one of those internal accountability mechanisms, and it's priority setting. If you review the Police Act around police boards, and specifically RCMP police advisory boards, one of the most important functions the board does provide is that priority setting piece. So as a police advisory board, priorities and could include targets and measures can be set by the board for the RCMP, and should be, I should say, set by the board for their local detachment commander. So that is very much outlined in the Police Act. Now, noting, I've done a lot of work with detachment commanders and some police advisory boards and various stakeholders within municipalities, and have noted that that function isn't always exercised to its full capacity. If there are priorities that are set, sometimes they are informed directly by the detachment commander through their own priority setting piece at the detachment level. But really it should be kind of a top-down approach with the municipality through their board setting the priorities for the RCMP. That being said, there's probably a bit of additional learning that could be supplied and a better understanding of how that process could work to make sure that those priorities are actionable, that they're relevant, that they don't slide into the operational side, because that operations piece is left to the RCMP. Board should not be dictating operations. So the province has recently partnered with the Canadian Association of Police Governance to develop training with them specifically tailored to the priority setting exercise. So we're hoping that come the new year, we'll be able to start rolling that out, and I'm pretty excited about it. I think it'll be a big shift for boards such as yourselves to really start setting fulsome priorities for their police service, that you actually do have the ability to, I don't want to say direct them, but influence their direction, not necessarily specific operations, but ensure that whether it be speeding or property crime or, violence, whatever it may be, drugs, that that gets focused for your community. So going back to this, this little chart, as you see, those priorities are set by the Municipal Policing Board, and they're actually fed to detachments and units to action. And obviously, there's a reporting piece that feeds back to that as well. Also, you'll see an arrow there pointing to the Department of Justice. So the province annually does set priorities for the RCMP as the provincial police service. However, prior to current times, those priorities would be set based on, priorities of the minister, priorities identified by staff and briefed up to the minister. They're looking at giving municipal boards more of an, or getting more feedback from municipal boards and perhaps aggregating some priorities identified by municipal boards into the provincial priorities set by the minister for the RCMP in Nova Scotia. So it's not to say that every municipal board's priorities will become part of the provincial priorities, but they may be aggregated, especially if there's trends that are noted. So you have your local detachment working on priorities set by the municipal board. Your detachment may also set its own priorities. That may be in response to local concerns, local areas of improvement within detachment operations. Could be something such as maybe they want to improve administrative processes, clean up, how they do paperwork, better. I'd say, a lot of administrative process, even some HR things, like perhaps employee wellness may be one of them. But they can work concurrently on the board's priorities, their own priorities, and also any priorities that come down through the division. So as a standalone division, they'll set their own priorities as well that are identified by the province, by themselves, and also some from National RCMP. So they're kind of feeding into one another. They're not competing with one another, but they're priorities that are identified by important stakeholders, the province, the municipalities, and perhaps even other community stakeholders. And so the division is going to get the provincial priorities. It may also look at local detachments priorities, which were fed by the boards. And it may aggregate some of those as well into those divisional priorities. And then, of course, kind of at the end here, you have the National RCMP. They may have a number of priorities in any given year, some of them identified by division, some of them identified individually at that national level, but they can be aggregated as well. So it's a bit of a flow, but to note that at the end of the day, as a board, you're setting priorities that are identified to your detachment, but may also be used by the province to inform provincial priorities. Those priorities can be identified a number of ways. Of course, as police advisory board members, councillors, and just through engagement with your community, you may have an ear to the ground and know what's going on. Perhaps there could be specific strategic planning sessions undertaken to help identify those priorities, or identify issues and then select priorities from them. And then you may also want to consult with specific community groups, your more marginalized folks, particular communities you may have that may need to be sought out for their feedback on priorities. And then, of course, I have another slide which I didn't include in this presentation, but it just kind of shows the reverse and that reporting piece. So for awareness, of course, you as you know, you get mostly quarterly reports from your detachment commander. That's where those results should be spoken to from a priority perspective. The RCMP also reports to the Nova Scotia Department of Justice on those priorities through, it could be reporting through documents. They have annual to semi-annual meetings with the minister where they do the same and they report on those priorities. Did that make sense?
I think it does. If I could summarize, I've sat in on a number of meetings with counterparts across the province, and it came to my attention that East Hants is far ahead in the relationship they have with the RCMP and have been. But I like this presentation because I think it adds, meat to the bones. We're not just the entity that's paying the bill. We have a say in the priorities that are each and every councillor and public member here have gathered out there. So to me, I'm glad to hear this, and it's being out there. So, but we don't have this problem per se in East Hants. I think we're far ahead of the game there. So.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll shed a bit of light on RCMP performance planning. So this may happen at a local level. It also happens at a divisional level for the RCMP in the province. Just to be abundantly clear and to just nail the idea home, this is your local detachments priorities, which will include the priorities that the board has set for them, but it may also include some local information to help provide some data which the board may choose to include in its own priority setting exercise. So some of that could take the shape of consultation and environmental scans, so including local data, demographics, crime trends, some of which you may see in your quarterly reporting from your detachment commander. The detachment commander with its priorities, so the ones that they're setting locally, the ones that are provided by the board, and the ones that may come through the division, they're going to develop objectives from the identified priorities, set measures and targets, and then develop initiatives and work plans. So a priority could be very broad, and then it's up to the detachment commander to figure out how they will address that priority. So if it's, reduce instances of pedestrian collisions, let's say, they're going to figure out how they're going to do that. So the how is left up to them. The what is the priority is going to be the board, or if it's a detachment priority or a divisional priority, it's going to be identified at that level. So as I mentioned, detachment commanders provide those quarterly reports that outline activities to several key parties. So sometimes that reporting is going not just to the local board, but is reported up through the RCMP, through their district policing officer, as well as through their annual performance plan process. And throughout the year, detachment commanders can be or should be open to providing information to Education Police Advisory Board on specific police-related issues of interest to the board. So take, for instance, body-worn cameras. That's a new national RCMP initiative, was initially piloted in Nova Scotia over the last year or so, and is now in the process of being rolled out. So most municipalities may have received presentations from the body-worn camera team at headquarters, or perhaps had information from their local detachment commanders. And it's those kind of things, the new initiatives, any trends that are identified, any kind of, whether it's a value-added service or an important piece of information to consider in the general sphere of policing locally, that can be provided throughout the year at any point. It could be identified by the detachment commander, it could be something of interest to the board. So if that's not something the detachment commander can provide, such as costs and that contract piece, that's something that here with the Department of Justice, we're always willing to provide. And we've done a number of those presentations, both broadly for municipalities, but also specific to, we'll come in and speak to one board or one council to provide whatever information is required there. So those diving a little bit deeper there into that external RCMP accountability mechanism and particularly dealing with complaints. There's just a screenshot there from the CRCC's website that is readily available to all members of the public. They also have a phone number, if internet access is an issue there. But as I mentioned before, ideally, those complaints would be referred to local detachment for resolution. And then should they not be satisfied with that result, they can be referred to the CRCC or at any point should they not, if for whatever reason they don't want to deal with the local detachment. And actually, I'm just noticing in my notes here, phone and complaints not currently supported. I think at one point they did have a phone number. I'm not sure if that's going to be changing down the road, but yes, the website is there, and I could share that with anyone if needed down the road. So yes, and just for awareness, the CRCC is an independent agency outside of the RCMP. It was created by Parliament back in 1988. And its mandate is to ensure the complaints about the conduct of RCMP members are examined fairly and impartially. They publish a number of reports broadly about like the number of complaints that they handled, how they are their disposition, so how they are handled, what the results are. And a lot of those reports can be made, are made public and are also shared with the RCMP for, to identify broad trends and what have you. So that does bring me to the end of my, like I said, it was a very small piece out of the overall presentation. I mentioned some of the work that we were doing with CAPG, and I'm just going to close that now because I think I'm done. So yes, the work with CAPG, I'm also working on developing, there's police advisory board training put on by the province for boards. And although detachment commanders are not members of the boards, they play a very important role in, of course, receiving the priorities and hearing from the board on issues that matter to them and the members of the public, but how they interact. So whether it's through reporting, how they're not meant to direct the board in any way. It's really a board-led process. So I'm also developing a presentation more tailored to detachment commanders so that they understand from their perspective what their responsibilities are and how they should be interacting with the board. So lots of exciting things coming down the pipeline. And probably in the new year, we'll be able to share some more of that, especially on the CAPG side. And then with the stuff we're doing with detachment commanders. I'll also add, should there be just, because we do have some time, and I'm cognizant of that. Your time is very important. If there are questions, I may be able to answer them, whether they be about RCMP from a contractual perspective with the province, operations more broadly within the RCMP, how things work. I know Mike is likely able to speak to a lot of those too, but I'll make the best use of my time and just offer to try to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Danielle, for your report. And before I open the floor, could I ask, is it possible that you send a copy of your presentation to us, and then we can forward it out to the council and public members of the Police Advisory Board? Is that possible?
Yes, Chair, I can definitely do that. And ahead of any future presentation on the Police Advisory Board piece, I'll ensure that we do the same for that as well.
All right, I appreciate that very much, and I'm glad to hear that you're partnering with the Nova Scotia Police Governors Association. It's long overdue, and to get some meat on the bones on that organization as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll open up the floor to questions for Danielle, and first up would be Councillor Norval Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a curiosity question. When there's a change in political or the provincial government, does that have much effect on your department, the DOJ?
Through you, Chair. I can't speak to that. I'm not a provincial government employee.
Okay.
I would suspect, I think anytime there's political change in any level of government, it influences some of the work that's done. But I'm not a provincial employee, so it's hard to really speak to that.
Okay, thank you for your honesty.
Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Just like to know if you might be in a position to give council an update on the police review that's being done by the province and who's doing it and where's it at, that type of thing?
Yeah, I can't. I can't give more than what's out there publicly. It's Deloitte is the firm that was selected to do the review. I think with an end date of March 2025. Other than that, I don't have any awareness of it, especially given my role as an RCMP employee seconded to Justice. I'm very much kept away from those discussions because the significance of the review is as I'm sure you can imagine, is broad. So other than what's available on the Justice website, I don't have any much more information than that. But I can flag that to Charcy so that if she does come back for a presentation, she can perhaps speak to that.
Thank you.
Is that all, Warden? Thank you. Seeing no further, anyone wanting to ask any questions, I thank you, Danielle, for your report, and I look forward to the remainder of this presentation to come forth in the future.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Because the presentation didn't go as long, so we're scheduled for a break, but we'll hold off on that until 10:30. Next up would be RCMP quarterly report with Staff Sergeant Balamacita and Sergeant McCrae.
Could we just ask for a few minutes, just have to get the presentation printed off for myself.
All right, we can carry on. How long would you need, sir? 10 minutes? Oh, okay, maybe I can sing in between times. Keep everybody entertained. Okay, we can move on. We'll leave 9 there for approximately 10 minutes. Selection date for annual performance plan workshop. Options are, some of the options, December 12th, December the 19th, January 14th, or January 16th. Is anybody would like any input on that? Couple up here now. Warden Rolston.
This is just a personal preference of my own, and I will certainly abide by whatever council prefers. I would prefer to wait until after the holidays to do this. Well, there are other people
I don't
wanting
think
to
he's
speak, so-
I don't think it is a motion, so, anyway. And I tend to agree with you if that bears anything. Next up, Councillor Mitchell.
Just curious, who's doing the workshop? Who's presenting the workshop?
Can you,
So the workshop would be a combination of Staff Sergeant Balmaceda and myself. We had one, it's around what Danielle was just talking about, setting your local priorities. So it would be a fairly informal workshop done by Councillor Balmaceda and myself, or Staff Sergeant Balmaceda and myself.
Okay.
if everyone could have just a quick look at their calendars to see.
Any
if-
date's good
if-
with me.
If those dates or any of those dates are, or if not, pick another date and we could see if we could work with it. January 14th, 16th is when?
Tuesday and a Thursday before executive.
Tuesday would work.
What if we do the 16th where we have to keep that set aside? Anyway,
No, it's the 22nd, 23rd, you have to keep this out.
all right.
Our calendar online is not right.
So it would be the 14th or the
Oh, no,
16th.
it's canceled.
So that is the week prior to executive committee. Is there any preference for anyone there? Would
I would prefer the 16th of January.
16th for one? How about anybody else want to speak up?
Whatever you want.
I'm okay with either date.
Garden Cole?
Well, I would say 16th as well, if nobody has any preference.
Ms. Cluett?
The 16th is pretty much the only day that would work for me, so.
Got Mr. Densmore? McDermott? Good? Walter?
That's in the evening.
That's in, yeah. Walter? Good? Mr. Mayor? Good? So I guess we have it right there, the 16th schedule. I'll let you look after that and put that in the calendar. I would say I'll leave that to staff to, yeah.
And this will be for doing the first part of the tour.
No, that will be for the annual performance plan.
Oh, for the end of the performance plan, so, yeah.
That still work for you?
Yeah, that still works. Yeah.
Okay, just checking. The next order of business is H Division Tour, spring of 2025. Kim, would you have, or is that left to the RCMP staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the H Division Tour, we've done this twice now for East Hants. It's basically a full day where we would arrange to have a tour of for police advisory board members of H Division. It includes going and seeing the training facility, all of the different functions that essentially you get by being part of the RCMP contract and get access to. It is a phenomenal day, and it really is eye-opening to the amount of resources that East Hants has access to by being part of that RCMP contract. So I would highly recommend that you do it. If Police Advisory Board wants us to go ahead and set up a time, we can probably be more at their discretion on a date. But if it's something that this board wants us to set up, we can go ahead and do that through Staff Sergeant Balmaceda and the folks at H Division. So today I'm just looking for
General agreement?
a motion to go ahead and schedule the tour. I can't guarantee you what date you're going to get, but whether you want a tour or not.
Thank you, Madam CAO. I would just like to echo what our CAO said. It is a tremendous opportunity for board members to view what happens, the ins and the outs, and it's so interesting to take on. And I would recommend that to any new board members or any of the old ones that, you know, for a refresher. It's just simply amazing what goes on. It's an eye-opener, so I'd just like to add that. Warden Rolston, you're up.
And certainly echo everything that's been said. I certainly I'm fine with going ahead and scheduling something. It might be worth asking if they would have a couple of dates we could choose from. They might not, but if that was possible, we could do that. So I would move that the CAO work with the RCMP to schedule a tour of H Division for police advisory members.
It's been duly moved and seconded that we approve a H Division tour in the spring of 2025 and to come back with dates at a further meeting. Well, everybody took off. So there's nobody left to speak, so the question has been called. We'll go to the vote. All right, how many do we got? How many should we have now? We should have 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, somebody hasn't voted. For any of you your options are your plus or your minus sign on the microphone switch there. If you could use that. Who? Oh, yes, so that would be 14, so. I'm still down 2 members. Oh,
Did you vote?
yes, I did. No, I voted before, so.
We're still down.
We're still down. 11, 10, 11, 12, 13.
11 counselors and 4.
Yeah, but 10, one's gone, so there's 10. That's 10, plus 4 members. It's 14, and we've got 12.
Is the light still flashing?
No, but we know that. But we still only have 12 votes.
Everyone just check your lights. Are they flashing on the plus and minus? If it's flashing, just press your.
Oh, Tim's probably not got an opportunity to vote from that chair.
Who?
Tim.
Oh, Tim can't vote from that chair. But that's still on mix 13.
I'm probably correct.
I'm up to 13.
Well, he can't vote.
That's all you're gonna get.
No, it's 14 members. What? All right.
Is he a yay or a nay?
Are you a yay or a nay? Yeah, I want that recorded, so there was 13 by this and one manually, right? So all the motion is passed unanimously. So we will be back with dates in the future, and our CIO will set that up. Are you guys ready now? I don't, okay, there you go. So we'll move on to our RCMP quarterly report was Staff Sergeant Balamacita and Sergeant Scott McRae. And who's gonna go first there, gentlemen?
I'll start, Mr. Chair.
Just turn that microphone towards you there, please.
I've never been accused of not being heard, but okay. Do you guys see a presentation? Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. Just a quick glaze over there. Danielle covered off a portion of what I'm going to cover here anyways, but I'll go a little more in depth as to what it is we need to do between the RCMP and council. We'll do an HR update. We'll, as usual, do an operations update. We'll talk about our school resources and our community initiatives that we've got on the go, and then we'll leave some time for some questions. So as of right now, we're sitting pretty as far as I've ever seen. We're 30 out of 30 positions occupied, but 26 of those bodies are roadable. So one's administratively reassigned, one's on a gradual return to work after an extended absence, one's on parental leave, and one's waiting for a transfer in. But 26 is where we're sitting at for roadable resources. I'll pass it over to Scott for the operations update.
Morning, everybody. Hope everybody had a good weekend. And for those who got out to our ceremonies, I've seen some faces. It's not really operational, but we were happy to get out to about 12 of our members got out into the Red Surge, out into around the county. So we get spread out, and they did. It was a little damp, but that's okay. The temperature was good, and most of the services, from what I've been told, were well attended. So it's always good to see that. You're seeing it's the time for numbers, and we can talk numbers and go along, but our trends are staying pretty consistent in East Hants. You're looking at your what we call person crimes, property crimes, and everything else that comes under the window. We've seen a little bit of increases in terms of the person crime, in terms of assaults. Most of those, gladly to report, have been minor in nature, and several of them resulting in charges, obviously. A couple of the bigger events, I won't go into it too much, but we had out in Mount Uniacke where we had a young girl approached by a man there, and I'm sure there'll be questions on that. And I'll kind of leave that to the end because I'm guessing that may ask a few more questions. Property crimes are seeing what I call the bounce back and forth effect. No big trends on it. They're up for 1 week, they're down another week, but overall they're kind of balancing out.